It's Life FM. You've got Baty. Now, I am joined by a special guest, Dr. Juliet Chevalier Watts from Waikato University, a professor. Now, I've practiced off-air pronouncing that name, and I think I got a smile, which is good. Now, Dr. Juliet, the reason we have you on the show today is recently an article of yours has been doing the rounds, and if you don't mind, I'm going to quote you. You've said, without churches, New Zealand would plunge into irreversible poverty and chaos overnight.
Yeah.
Dr. Juliet, that is a massive claim. Why is that
Yes.
the case?
Okay, so because in the research that I do, so I specialize in charity law and have done for many, many years as an academic. And I started off my research, I will just tell you a wee story. I started off my research with this hypothesis that religion was no longer required, particularly in New Zealand or anywhere in the world. I was like, we're mostly secular these days. Why would we need religion anymore? And specifically, why would we need religious charities anymore? What good will they possibly do? So I had this hypothesis because I'm atheist and therefore religion is irrelevant. However, it turns out I was fundamentally wrong on that. And so I put myself into quite a conflict of now going, oh, actually, religious charities, and I'm talking from New Zealand specifically, but I know from the US, from Australia, from the UK, Canada, that religious charities literally underpin the charity sector. And the majority of their works go unsung. There is so little known about the work that religious charities do, not for any nefarious reasons, but just because religious charities and churches don't talk about themselves. They don't say what they do. They don't explain to people all of the benefits that they offer. And there are millions upon millions of benefits. You know, we've got economic benefits and we've got soft benefits, as it were, as well. And so just give you an example of it from an economics perspective. So interesting for me, somebody from a secular point of view, which may interest other people who have no religious view either. If we were to get rid of religious charities straight away, from a 2018 research that I carried out with my research partner, who's Professor Frank Scrimgeour from the Waikato Management School, he specialises in accounting and finance. So he does the brilliant maths, I do the law. And we gathered this data and he analysed it. And religious charities were worth 6.1 billion New Zealand dollars worth to the sector. Wow. So that was inclusive of their services, but it won't be inclusive of all of their services. And we pitched 2018 because that was prior to COVID. Everything changed for charities during COVID. It was a disaster for them. So they're beginning to pick themselves up again now. So obviously we'll carry on with the research post-COVID. But what this research has failed to capture, and not for any other reason than it's a nightmare to capture, is what religions also do indirectly. So all of the services that they never talk about, that just occur because their religion tells them that that's what they need to do. So I'll give you an example. Things like, and the churches have asked me to remain anonymous on this one. Now, imagine that your loved one has passed away and you are in debt and you have no idea how you're going to pay for that funeral for your loved one. And what are you going to do? Well, some churches will pay for that funeral for you. And that kind of blew my mind somewhat. And I went, who knows that you do this? And they went, well, the people that we paid for the funeral for. And I went, what about anybody else? And they went, well, no, why would we tell anyone else? I went, because it's bloody amazing. That's why. And they went, but we don't like to talk about these things. It's not in our ethos to talk about the good that we do. And it reminded me of the phrase that we have here in New Zealand is the kumara does not speak of its own sweetness. And this is exactly the issue with religious charities, is they don't talk about their own sweetness. And so it's left for me, rather ironically, an atheist to go, do you know what? You're actually doing some amazing stuff out there and people need to hear about this. So you know it's bad in the world when an atheist starts sticking up for churches and religious charities. And that seems to be my life at the moment, is doing that. I mean, look, there is so much more to religious charities and what they do. And unfortunately, headlines just get caught up in the really easy targets. But what then happens, as we see all the time, is currently happening now, is all of the rest of the religious charities get tarnished with the very same brush. But even those contentious religious charities, religions that are in the headlines constantly, I would argue, and again, perhaps ironically, that they still deserve their place at the charitable table
Ooh.
because of the benefit. Yes, I know, because of the benefits that they actually still bring. So, for instance, those who have a religious bias, so not me, so I won't benefit from any of this, you are more likely to live far longer than non-religious people. You are less likely to commit crime. You are more likely to be in full-time employment or gainful employment. You are less likely to fall into debt. You are more likely to have much better health outcomes. And you are less likely to have fragmentation in your whānau and your surrounding friends. So you're actually going to have better life outcomes than someone like me. So for all those people that are part of those churches that may well be in the press constantly, those people are still going to benefit fundamentally from those religious messages and from that religious life that they are leading through those churches and through the religious outputs. And they also carry out programs that are vital for communities. Okay, I'll say this name because everybody picks on them, but I'm actually defending them. It's Destiny's Church. Now, I know that Destiny Church has been in the press, and it's a really easy target. And frankly, it's lazy journalism as far as I'm concerned, that just pick on them again. It wasn't all of Destiny Church that caused some issues a couple of 3 weeks ago. It was a small minority. And in fact, it wasn't even some of Destiny Church either. It was some other people who were joining in just because that's the type of people they generally are, it would appear. So Destiny Church, for instance, has a program called Man Up. You may well have heard of it. Man Up saves men's lives. And it does so in a remarkable way. So New Zealand, unfortunately, has the highest suicide rates for men, the highest incarceration rates for men. And, I think that's appalling. But guess what Destiny Church is trying to change? They have the ability, because they know their communities, to step in and help these men become better people in their communities, to become better fathers, better family members, better community members, and to stop them from killing themselves. In many regards, they have saved literally hundreds of lives. People don't really talk about that because it's just much easier to say, oh, isn't Destiny Church a controversial church? Yeah, it may well be, but lots of things are controversial in our society. That doesn't mean to say they should be cancelled.
Oh, I love that. And Dr. Juliet, I'm so thankful to hear the obvious research that has been put behind a lot of the evidence that you now have heard yourself, and it has changed your mind. And of course, we hope that happens regardless of our religious beliefs or not. Now, it's interesting to me that it has been quoted that you've said churches hide their light under a bushel. Now, that is directly from scripture, from Mark.
Correct. Yes.
Were you aware of that scripture before your research? Was this something that came to light after you'd done all this work? Because it is interesting, as you say, you are a self-proclaimed atheist, and it is also quite interesting to have you, I guess, as a champion now of religious organizations and churches, charities, we should say.
Yes.
How do you factor in the scripture in this moment and using that in this scene? It's quite interesting to hear that.
It is very interesting. Look, I make biblical references, religious references quite a lot because I have to speak in a way that people will generally want to listen to, will want to understand. So I have to frame things in a way that will capture an audience. So it can capture, so it's such a well-known phrase that why would I not utilize it? Because it does exactly what these religious entities do. They absolutely hide their lights under a bushel, and they shouldn't, is what I am arguing. And I don't know how they're going to change that.
Yes, well, that is my next question, and sorry to interrupt you, but I guess what would your diagnosis be then as somebody from the outside looking in who has seen all these benefits of the church, and you even spoke about an organization, a church you said that wishes to remain anonymous still even
Yes,
in this moment about the
I
good work they
know.
do. Is your diagnosis that we should be more boldly proclaiming to the
Yeah.
world that, and how would you recommend we did that?
Well, perhaps you could align yourself with the tame atheist, perhaps, and have them sing, and have them sing your praises.
A tame atheist. I
It's,
love that.
it's, I'm laughing about it, but it's probably not a bad idea, to be honest, because the problem you might have is that people say you start singing your own praises. People might go, "Oh, well, surely religions shouldn't be so boastful." And that might, and I know that's what religions are concerned about, that they shouldn't be boastful, and they should be modest in the way in which they approach their work, their ethos, etc. Absolutely, I get that. But there has to be other methods of them, not just them standing up in the media and going, "We're wonderful, look what we did this week." But perhaps there could be programs that they could focus on, so core programs. So for instance, like sanitarium, for instance, I know that's always in the press as well. It's another very easy target that I will defend 100%. They have their breakfast programs, so feeding children who don't have food, basically, or who cannot get enough food. So those are the sorts of programs that capture the imagination. Again, I go back to the Man Up program. That also captures the imagination, because it's not just religious people that benefit from that, it's secular communities that benefit. So perhaps focus on those that benefit from their work that sit outside their usual communities, because, and quoting another biblical thing, I'm preaching to the converted probably when I speak to these religious entities and say you must promote yourselves, and they say, well, we do. And I was like, yes, within yourselves, you already know the good that you do.
Inside that echo
You,
chamber.
yes, that's right. You've got to move outside that. Maybe this tame atheist can assist, but anyway, she's a busy girl right now. So,
Well, I want to
so
say thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And I want to maybe close with this question, because there
yeah,
will be those listening. So you're speaking right now on Life FM.
yeah,
This is a Christian broadcast
yes,
known to be about Jesus. And there will be
yes.
those of our listenership who will believe if I don't try to take this opportunity to convert you, that I have failed in my job. I don't believe that is true by any means, shape, or form. And I am
No, indeed.
already loving the relationship that has been built here.
Look,
But
I'm just trying my best not to burst into flames right now talking to you. So,
I don't have yet that ability to smite thee, and I don't know that I want it, to be honest. But post your research and all of these
yeah,
conversations, and now being a
yeah,
champion of the churches in a bit of a
yeah,
strange way, has this
I
at
know.
all changed your perspective on, let's more focus on the people, Christians, rather than churches, because we've been talking about
Mm,
churches as an organization,
mm.
but has this at all changed your opinion about those who classify themselves as Christians?
So I've always recognized that Christians are just people, and that invariably they're just nice people. But they just happen to be religious. So I'm not going to hold that against them. And I mean, look, I've had an awful lot of people pray for me over the time. Even the Bishop of Haiti decided to pray for me at one point. And, I was very grateful for that and everything, but it literally changed nothing. So if the Bishop of Haiti can't change my mind on these things, then I don't know how anyone else is going to. So, no, for me, religious people are just people who happen to have this failing, as far as I'm concerned, believing in something that doesn't exist. And but at this point, I probably offended all of your listeners, for which I cannot apologize.
Look, honestly, I think the conversations here are well worth it, even regardless of offense. And I hope that we get to have even more in the future, because good
I would be
discourse and
delighted.
good conversation is a cornerstone of all humanity, regardless of religion. And as those who call ourselves Christians, we need to be able to enter into this discourse well. So thank you for
Yeah.
taking this time. And thank you for, I guess, as you describe yourself, being a tame atheist and taking this time to talk with us.
You can use that phrase, I don't mind.
Look, I mean, yeah, let's
It's
patent
yours.
it, and maybe we can make even a little bit more money.
Look, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.